Hello, everybody. Good morning. In Italy, this is early morning. It's 10 a.m.
Sì, I'm Italian.
My wife just said that she's Italian because she just got up. Yeah. And I go to the office, and if I say good morning at 10 a.m., they tell me that good morning. Morning was like 3 hours ago, 4 hours ago. Now it's almost afternoon. Okay. Points of view. For Spanish, this is not even good morning time. It's 11, 12, more or less. Maltais, Antonia. Anyways, guys, let's get started. I'm already recording, so today we discussed a bit about forehand and backhand, the basic technique, and how to perform the basic baseline strokes. And so I will explain you a bit how to show or the different grips for the racket, so how to hold the racket for playing these shots, and then the most important notions and concepts for performing the forehand and backhand properly. I wanted to show you also some exercise, but I don't know where you are, but here it's raining pretty well. So my garden is not accessible. I will show you, I will discuss them with you quickly, but obviously, as always, if we had seen them in practice, it would have been way better, but can't do this anyways, regardless of my garden accessibility. So I have everything ready. What I need to explain you the grips is this. It's a color from my kids and my racket. Picking it up. Racket. And we can start discussing the forehand and backhand, the two basic strokes from the baseline. So the first thing that we will discuss is how to hold the racket when you perform these strokes. I will start discussing forehand, and then we go into backhand because they have different grips. So the first thing that we usually explain is, if you see, well, this is still a bit dirty from the last time. If you see my palm, where does the palm go on the racket? What we do typically is, especially with kids because they have a lot of fun, is to paint the index knuckle and the hand part. See these two spots here that I made? One is here and one is down here. Now I'll try to join them with a line. More or less it will be a line, but it's my left hand that is doing that, so I'm not sure. There we go. This line between my index knuckle and the hand palm is the line that goes to the surface of the racket. And I will explain you how. So far so good? It's an imaginary line that I drew for you from right below the index knuckle to the hand palm, right here. So when we discuss the tennis racket, we usually take into account this. If you have the racket, you can try yourself, but it's nothing special. You put the racket this way with the frame up, and if you can see the bottom of the racket has several sides, actually 8 sides. Can you see them? 1, 2, 3, 4. So it has 8 sides, 8 surfaces. We usually name these or number them. The top side is number 1. Then there is number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6, number 7, number 8. Clear so far? We use this to explain the grip. Each different grip has a different way to hold the racket, and is based on the number of the surface in which you hold the racket. So let's start with the forehand. The very old style forehand, like old, probably 1950s or so, is a style in which this line goes to the number area or side number 2. So this is number 1, this is number 2, or this is the same, like depending if you're left hand or right hand, number 2 is on one side or the other, but it doesn't really matter. So when I say number 2, this is the side. What I need to do is to put that line over that side. See, this is number 2. This is a surface, the surface number 2. So what I do is I take this part, the hand palm, I put it on the bottom of the surface number 2. And then I make that the line that I drew here goes all the way on that surface. And I hold the racket. Do you follow me, guys? If you have a racket, it's easier. Like each side has then a surface, a different surface. So what I do is I put that line on that surface. So number 2 is this surface. What I do is that I put the lower point at the bottom of the racket, and then I make the line on that surface. And then I hold the racket. Okay? This is called continental grip. Each grip has a name. This one is the very old one. It's called continental. It was used in the 50s, in the 60s, all very old legends of tennis, Rod Laver, or these people used to play years ago. And it's a very classic one, but very useless right now because tennis has changed, the speed of the ball has changed, the spin of the ball has changed. So many things have improved or changed so much that this grip has become basically useless. Because when you hit the ball with this grip, your impact is right here and your wrist is a bit open, and it's very difficult to give spin to the ball, and it's also very difficult to, that's my wife, and it's very difficult to respond to a ball that has a spin. And since now all tennis players use spin. Spin means that they give the ball a sort of revolution movement or spin. Rotation, thank you. My wife is way better than me at English, so can help. Rotation, and the rotation makes it very difficult to control the ball when you have a continental. The continental, so number 2, is also called hammer grip. Like sometimes obviously hammer grip is not official name. It's just the name that we sometimes give to make it easier to understand. We use it a lot, and tennis players use it a lot in other shots, for instance, the serve. But we won't discuss serve right now. Bye-bye. Not for you, bye-bye was for my wife. You have to wait still for a while. And it's called hammer because it looks like you are holding a hammer. When you put it on the second, it's like if you stand in front of you, the racket is just like this. So it looks like when you're hammering something. Is the way you would hold the hammer to hammer a nail in the wall, for instance. And that's why it's called hammer. It's easier to understand for beginners, especially when they are adults. When they're kids, probably less, because they shouldn't have used the hammer already, but we call it that way. So that's the continental, not used anymore for forehand. Let's go into, bless you, Fiona. Let's go into the second one. The second one is called Eastern grip. Eastern grip is the classic one after continental. Used more often 20 years ago, 15 years ago, still used right now. Is my grip, for instance, the grip that I use, probably you know better Roger Federer than me as a tennis player, a bit more famous than I am. Roger Federer also uses the Eastern. The Eastern is when we put the line here on the surface number 3. So 1, 2, 3. The 3 is the one that is on the side. Okay, here. So same process. On the surface number 3, I put the palm down, then the line on it, and I hold the racket. This is the Easter. It's very, very easy to learn, or the best for learning for beginners and kids, because basically when you hit the ball, if the ball is coming from that side, look at I'm having the Easter. If I just extend my end, see that the racket is perfectly straight, so you can hit the ball straight. There is no lift, no way to move your wrist. The wrist is just plain, and it's very easy. It's also easy because it's basically like hitting with your palm. If you didn't have the racket, only with your hand, it's your palm. So your palm pushes, and that's easy for the kids to learn. The only difference is obviously that you have the palm in the same position as the racket. This is how sometimes I explain kids to hold the racket Eastern. Put your hand on the head of the racket and then go down slightly until the end of the grip of the handle. So it's basically like hitting with your palm. So it's very, very, very easy for beginners to learn the Eastern because it's straight playing. Advantages of the Eastern: you hit the ball very fast and plain, and so it gives a lot of speed when you hit well. If you have a good timing on the ball, it's less controllable when you want to give spin, rotation to the ball. So many players nowadays have lost this plain style, and they use a lot of spin, and this grip Eastern is not great, is not the best for the spin. You can still give spin. I give spin with the racket, but it's more difficult to control it, and the spin is never as strong as the other. But you can hit much stronger when you hit plain, so flat ball, no spin. Federer and few others still use it, but most players have switched to the following one. The following one is when we hold the racket on the surface number. I'm happy that Fiona is having a lot of fun and there are rackets flying around. That's good. It's a pity that I don't know if everybody can see that because it's really worth it.
Oh, really?
So the following grip is the semi-Western, or as Americans would say, since I lived in the United States, they say semi-Western because they like, this weird pronunciation. So the semi-Western or semi-Western, Fiona, watch out because the racket you can end up on your head. So that's it. The semi-Western or semi-Western is on number 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4 is when you have the racket right here. So let's try it. I put again, as always, on number 4 my palm, and this is the semi-Western. The difference with the continental is that it's on the opposite side, and therefore when you try to hit the ball, if I put my arm straight, look at the racket how it is. Remember, on Eastern you would have the racket like straight. On semi-Western, when you hit the ball, by just extending your arm, the racket is slightly transversal, meaning that when you hit the ball, the spin that you give is much easier to give spin. It's much better because you are already in a position in which you're giving spin to the ball. The spin is when the ball basically is not hit straight, but slightly moves through the racket until it leaves the racket, and so you give the rotation to the ball. And this semi-Western is very good for that because of this position. Obviously, when you want to hit plain, strong balls, you have to almost break your wrist. While on the Eastern, to hit plain, you just have your wrist perfectly lined. With the semi-Western or semi-Western, if you want to hit with the racket plain, so straight, look at my wrist. It has to turn down a little. So it's a bit more complicated in terms of the position of the wrist when you want to hit flat. Rafa Nadal, Djokovic, Thiem, all these players, they use the semi-western because they rather use spin than flat shots. They can use flat shots, but it's more complicated to hit, but mostly they use spin, and therefore this is a very good one. There is another one, well, there are another two. Okay, wait a minute, my headphones went off. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, but it went off, so let me, I hate this. Because then when I move to show you the shot, you won't hear me. So I have to, for a moment, just reconnect my, okay. Can you hear me, right? Just switch to this. Okay, so the following one is less used nowadays, but is still probably more used than the Eastern, is when we go into the Western, pure Western. So we have seen continental, Eastern, semi-Western, Western, here, below. Number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Same process. I put the line that I drew right there, hold the racket at the bottom, and I have the Western. Look at the Western now. When I put my arm straight, can you see the racket? It's basically parallel to the ground. In semi-Western, it would be this. In Eastern, it would be this. In Western, is basically parallel, which means that if you want to give a spin, you have to move your wrist, flex your wrist a little, and so to have this position. This obviously increases a lot the spin that you can give to the ball, but is a very uncomfortable type of shot because your wrist is under pressure all the time. Many players don't use it because they prefer to let's say, they are okay with the movement of the wrist, and this allows to give a lot more spin than the semi-western when you hit the ball. But,
also der Beckenboden hat einfach zwei Seiten und man kann wirklich unabhängig trainieren. Insofern, ich kann nicht.
I have no idea what's happening, but I heard someone saying something. It wasn't me though. Anyways, especially because I would love to speak that fluent German, but I'm still not able. And therefore, the Western is used, but not that often. The semi-Western is the most used. One peculiarity of Eastern versus Western, when you play Eastern, remember? When you play Eastern and you hit the ball with the forehand, you hit with this surface. When you go to the backhand that we explain later, you hit with this surface. So Eastern forehand, the ball is here. Backhand, the ball is here on the two sides. When you play semi-Western or Western, you hit the ball here, and then again you hit the ball here. So you use the same side of the racket all the time because of the position of the wrist and the position of your hand. Does it change anything in terms of performance? No, just curiosity. That you use always the same side of the racket on one, and in the other you use the two different sides, but it doesn't really change anything in terms of performance, or it's just a curiosity due to the position of the handle. Now it's better. Instead of rackets on the head, it brings water, much better. I'm talking about Fiona's situation there. She has a flying racket around their head. Questions on the grips so far? So you remember that this imaginary line, and then always handle the racket at the bottom, starting with putting the lower here, the lower spot on the bottom of the racket, and then holding. And then remember the numbers. If you're left-handed or right-handed, it just changes the way from 1, the top, You count here if you are left-handed. You count towards here if you are right-handed, but it's basically the same. So if you don't have any other questions on this, I'll switch into the backend. Then you can ask me later in case. The backend, same thing, same concept, just that there is one more complication. The complication is that sometimes there are players who play one hand, like Team, for instance, your best player in Austria, and others more frequently that play with two hands. So they hold the racket with two hands. When you hold the racket with two hands, then you have to figure out the grip for both hands. So it's a bit more information. On the other hand, the backhand has the basic backhand only has 3 grips, while we have already talked about 4 in the forehand. So they have less options. By the way, there is a forehand grip that has been used only by one player, as far as we know, in the history. 20 or 30 years ago, it's called Hawaiian grip, and this one you have the racket on the sixth spot, on the sixth side. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's even worse than the Western. It's like when you have it completely moved down. It's called Hawaiian, but only one player is known to have used it 20 years ago. Berasategi, it's called player. Anyways, let's go to backhand. That's history of tennis information. Backhand, 3 main grips. The first one is the continental. The continental is, again, when you count, number 1, number 2, the hammer grip, as always. So as we have seen for forehand, exactly the same. It's a hammer position. When you hit the racket, when you hit the ball comes on the opposite side. So the forehand comes on this side, backhand comes on the other side. When you hit the ball, and you put your racket straight, see the racket how it is? The court is on that side. So the ball tends to go up because the racket is in this position. So you have to move your wrist, flex your wrist a bit in order to hit the ball straight. Not very commonly used in tennis, except for if you're playing 2 hands, because it's very uncomfortable to hold the racket this way and hit the ball properly. The 2 most common grips in the backhand are the Eastern, but in this case, the Eastern is not. Remember, in forehand, we said it was number 3, surface number 3. In the backhand case, they call Eastern grip when is on the surface number 1. Okay? So in forehand, it's number 3. In backhand, it's number 1. Eastern is number 1. So number 1, as always, we put the line on there, and there you go. When you extend your arm, and try not to destroy your racket with the chair that is next to you, it's perfectly straight. Like for the Eastern, for the forehand, so for hitting plain ball is perfect, because I just extend my arm, and the racket is perfectly vertical, meaning that when I hit the ball, it's straight ahead, and I can hit a flat shot with no problems. This is Federer's grip, Wawrinka's grip. I think that Team uses the following one, not the Eastern Classic, but the following one. So this, just like for the forehand, the Eastern in backhand is perfect for hitting the ball flat, plain, no spin. You can give spin, but for the spin, you need to flex a bit your wrist, so you can have the racket in this position for the spin. So very comfortable if you want to hit strong and plain and flat shots, but less comfortable if you want to give spin to the ball. And then the third one is the semi-western. So continental, number 2, Eastern, number 1, semi-western, number 8. The 3 spots that we use for the backhand are 1, the top, and the 2 on the side of the top. 1, Eastern, 2, continental, 8, semi-western. When I do the semi-western and I extend my arm to hit the ball, see the position of the racket? It's not anymore straight. It's not this way. This would be the continental. This is the eastern. This is the semi-western. Which means that when I do the natural movement without any weird thing on my wrist, the ball gets spin because the frame is slightly transversal. So it's very good for give spin to the ball. Exactly like for the semi-western for forehand. That's why many players nowadays use it, because spin is the most important probably part of the game of a player, because it allows you to keep a good speed without the risks of a flat shot. And so many players are using this semi-western. This is if you're using a one-hand backhand. Then there is the two-hand backhand. So for the two-hand backhand, think of this. Your dominant hand, in my case the right, uses one of the grips that we just explained for backhand, okay? So my dominant is at the bottom and uses one of the mostly either eastern or semi-western, okay, for the backhand, those that we just said. When I talk about the left hand or the non-dominant hand, in my case the left hand, the grip that we use for the backhand follows the concept of the forehand grip. You follow me, guys? Remember that it was slightly different? So where in backhand, this is eastern, this is continental, this is semi-western. In forehand, this is eastern. So there is a slight difference. And this is semi-western. Do you follow me, guys? A bit? So while they have the same names, they have, when I say eastern forehand, I refer to the surface number 3. When I say eastern backhand, I refer to the surface number 1. So when I talk about the grip of my non-dominant hand, I'm using the forehand name system. When I talk about the dominant, I use the backhand name system. So let's start with the dominant. The dominant, usually tennis players use the eastern or the semi-western. So the eastern, number 1, because we're talking about the backhand, or more likely semi-western, number 8. All right? The typical combination is, example of a very good tennis player I know, myself, just kidding, like not kidding about what I use, but kidding about I'm good. I use eastern plus eastern. Eastern on my dominant, meaning that the eastern on a backhand is number 1. And then since I play two hands, my non-dominant uses eastern also. But remember that when I talk about my non-dominant, the eastern refers to the forehand names. So my dominant here on number 1, my non-dominant here on number 3, eastern plus eastern. The result is, what I do is with my left hand, I get the eastern forehand grip, and I put it right next to my dominant that has the eastern backhand. The result is that when I'm hitting the ball and I extend my arms, the racket is perfectly straight. So for pushing forward without spin, excellent. So you hit the ball and boom, it goes. Eastern plus eastern. Eastern backhand, dominant. Eastern forehand, non-dominant. You follow me, guys? Approximately?
Yeah.
And then the other combination that is widely used by professionals, so you go for Rafa Nadal, for Novak Djokovic, and all the most famous players, is one that allows you to give more spin. It's the semi-western plus semi-western. So dominant, semi-western. Dominant, semi-western backhand is number 8 here, right? And the other is the non-dominant is semi-western forehand, which is number 4 here. Yeah? So if I do a dominant semi-western on the number 8 plus non-dominant semi-western number 4. The result is when I try and hit the ball, my racket is transversal, which allows to give more spin to the ball. Does it make sense? Guys, those that I see can do a, or, all right. So these are the only two main grips for the two hands backhand. Most players will use semi-western plus semi-western. Be aware that I'm not going to explain you all the grips, but there are also midway. So like Roger Federer really doesn't play pure Eastern backhand, but is halfway between Eastern and semi-western, but we're not discussing this. Some players play semi-western plus almost Western. We are not going to discuss these peculiarities because really it doesn't really matter. These are the main and most important grips that you can find out there. Questions?
Is it also about how the ball's rotation is? Like on this, I decide which grip I take?
No, usually players keep the same grip all the time. That obviously depends on what kind of shot you want to play. Like if you want to play a backspin shot, but we are not going to talk about it, it's different type of shot. So you may change your grip, but mostly they use always the same grip. They don't really change the grip. What they change is the position of their wrist to hit the ball more flat or less flat. But it's uncommon that they change the grip on the same shot. They always keep the same grip on the same shot.
Okay, so you can use all the grips, and it doesn't matter on how the ball has been played from the opponent.
Yeah, basically yes. You choose the grip that better fits you. You don't use all the grips. Like you choose one grip for your forehand, one grip for your backhand, and then depending on how the ball comes from the other, you may change the position of your wrist to hit the ball a bit better or a bit more lifted. Some players slightly change it depending on the ball that comes, but it's not really common that they really switch from one grip to another completely. Like you won't find Rafa Nadal playing, since he decides to play flat or the ball allows him to play flat, he won't switch to Eastern. He still keep the same or very similar grip. The only difference is that they decide to maybe change slightly the position of the wrist in a way that the racket hits more flat or less flat, but mostly they maintain the same grip with very slight modification, but never to switching from one to another. So for instance, I'm a Eastern, I use all Eastern grip, I never change it. The only thing that I do is that when I need to give more spin, because a ball comes with a lot of spin, I just move my wrist to have a better position. But I don't really change it. But anyways, it depends. Well, it depends on the kind of shot that you want to play. But we are not going to talk about other types of shot now because there is also the backspin shot. In that case, it's a different thing. The only thing that probably that surely changes, in case someone had the question, is you have to switch when you hit from forehand to backhand. That's obvious. Like you switch the grip based on the shot that you're hitting. If I'm hitting a forehand, I'm waiting here, I'm hitting a forehand, and then the following ball comes to the backhand, I have to switch to my backhand grip, which is not the same as we've seen. For instance, in my case, it's Eastern. I hit the ball Eastern here, and then the ball comes there. What I have to do is switch to my Eastern backhand and then hit. So the thing that you have to do for sure is switching grip based on the shot that you're playing, but each of your shots will have a grip that you basically learn, and then you always have that mostly. Does it make sense, guys? That's probably one of the most complicated things, actually, like to learn to switch from one grip to another when you have to change the shot. The typical thing that I explain to especially adults that are beginners are when you move from Eastern to Eastern, so from Eastern forehand to Eastern backhand, is like I tell them to give gas, to accelerate with the scooter, with a motorbike. I'm in this way, this is my Eastern forehand, okay? Following, I have to hit a backhand Eastern. What I do is give gas, and I switch, like I accelerate with a motorbike. If you ever had a motorbike, you know that you have your hands on the handle, and then you want to accelerate, you have to do this movement, right? Guys? So I am on the Eastern, I accelerate, and I get, like I give gas to the motorbike, and I switch to the backhand, and then I hit. That's a very easy way to explain it, but they have to, a tennis player, beginner, or whoever, has to switch from one grip to another depending on what kind of shot you're playing. Then it also will apply also when we discuss about volleys, when we discuss about serve, when we discuss about smash and overhead strokes, etc. Each one of them, you will have a type grip, the one you prefer to hit the ball with. Questions so far? Or more questions? Alles gut? Alles klar? Passt? Klingt toll. Then let's go into the what the hell does the second hand? Like the second hand when you don't use it because you are on a one hand backhand and or forehand is only with one hand. I know probably one or two players who use two hands for the forehand, but it's not really used. So what does the other hand do? Forehand is called the pointer. Like we call the second hand the pointer. Because in theory, they teach you that you use the other hand to point at the ball. It's not really pointing, but you will see tennis player, they have this position. With the hand in the front. It's like sort of pointing at the ball. The ball comes from you, I'm sort of pointing the ball like this. You can do it with one finger, with the whole hand, with two fingers, whatever. Someone does it with a gun, doesn't really matter, but the hand is in front of you. It's called pointer, but it's not that you're pointing the ball with that. The only reason that we do that is to keep a better balanced position. Like this position for hitting the ball is much more balanced than this position, obviously, or this position. This is like country club tennis player, maybe very relaxed, or Italian tennis player would be this way, drinking a coffee meanwhile, but it's not very comfortable for the balance. For the balance and for maintaining a good posture that allows you to keep the balance, so you open up the hand in front of you, so you have a certain the center of gravity stays in the middle. It helps keeping the balance. Make sense? So we call it pointer. We explain to beginners to point the ball with that just for the idea of having the hand in front of them, but it's not really a pointer. For the backhand, well, when you have a two hand, it's obvious, right? The second hand is together with the first to hit the ball. Why this used so much by tennis players nowadays? Because balls are now come from the opponent very fast, and the second hand helps you a lot in keeping control over the ball, because the second hand helps you controlling the position of the head of the racket, and so the two hand allows you the second hand sort of locks the position and gives you a better control over the ball. There is a disadvantage of the second hand that some player, and that's why some players still use the one hand, is for instance when you have a very far ball. for a ball that is far away and you have to reach it. When you want to hit with two hands, you have to be really fast, because you cannot really try to reach the ball extending your arms, because you need both hands. If you are on one hand, it's much easier to extend your arm and hit the ball. So the disadvantage for the two hands is that you need to be much faster with your legs if you want to reach far balls. Now, what do we do with the non-dominant hand on a one-hand backhand? Basically, have you ever seen, I don't know, it's called, not even in English, when you have a sort of piece of wood and then elastic, and then you do this, and you have a ball there, and then you release it and the ball goes? You know what I mean?
Slingshot.
Slingshot is called? Never heard.
Slingshot, like this one?
Yeah, like you have something in your hand, and then there is an elastic. You put the elastic back so to get some kinetic energy, then you release, and what you had there goes out.
Yeah.
Like a ballesta. Slingshot?
Slingshot.
Slingshot, okay. Never used in my life at all. I don't even think I know it in Italian how it is. Huh? Tassilo, you were saying? Nothing? Okay, I was that in German, by the way, so I learned it.
Steinschleuder.
Obviously. Don't ask me to repeat it. Anyways, so Steinschlager, or whatever that is. Same concept. The left is sort of the hand that pulls back the elastic and then drops it for the shot. So left hand, when I'm waiting for the ball is coming from my coffee machine, and then comes on the backhand. My non-dominant pulls back the racket. See that I keep it here typically. I saw some player holding the racket here, terrible. But if you prefer it, it's fine. But typically they take the racket from the heart. This is called the heart. So pull the racket back, and when the moment comes to hit the ball, release. Boom, and hit the ball. That's what typically the second hand does. So it's like Ruckschlagspiele. No, I already forgot what was that. You pull back the racket, and then boom, release. Maybe someone can make me the favor of writing that word on the chat, so I learn also how it's written whenever you have time. Thank you, Tassilo. So the second hand does this job on the one end. It helps a lot also, again, keeping the position of the frame of the racket in a good way rather than getting crazy. Imagine that you don't hold the racket and you have to hit the ball straight without the help of the second hand. You may do this, you may not lose control over the frame. So this helps keeping the frame straight, and then when you release, it's easier to release and to hit the ball. Does it make sense, guys? Wonderful. Thank you for all the yes. Oh, wait a minute. Let me see. See, Steinschleuder. Huh? Thank you. Thanks God, I have it written there so I can copy and paste and never forget that word. I won't know how to say, sorry, can I buy a kilo of meat, but I'll know Steinschleuder. Very useful for me. So, say that, we have basically covered the main things about the hands and the position of the hands and arm for the two shots. Now is what happens to the rest of the body. So how do we hit the ball? The first thing, there are a lot of stuff that really you need to remember when you hit a ball, but you don't feel a person, especially a beginner, with all the information, because it would be crazy. So the first, probably most important thing that I say, you never hit the ball facing with your body the opposite side. Forget about professionals right now. They do it all the time. but that's not the point. When you are teaching someone who's beginner, you hit the ball sideways. How is it? Like, imagine that you are my opponent. I'm waiting for the ball from you, coming from you, and I have to throw the ball to hit the ball towards you. I never do this or this, which would be with my body looking at you, but it's always sideways. So let's say that the ball comes to the forehand. I position myself on the side. So to hit the ball here and then toss it towards you. So on a side, never this way. Forget about professional players. They do it. I hit the ball to this many times, so frontal. But for beginners to learn the technique, the pure technique is side, boom. Backhand, same. I'm waiting the ball from you, comes here on my side, on my backhand side. Lateral, sideways, boom, towards you. This, not very useful. You with me, guys? So the first and most important thing is sideways. So in a position that is lateral and you are not facing with your body in front of you to the opposite side, but you are looking sideways. The second thing is that the body is not moving. So the only thing that really moves when you hit the ball, in order to have good control and hit a fast ball, is the arm. The arm must move as fast as possible, but the rest of the body is straight. And remember why the last time we said that core is very important for a tennis player? This is precisely the reason that the current schools of tennis teach you to play in a way that you are always very straight with your trunk. So you don't see players like this, except maybe they are waiting for the serve. But usually they are straight with their trunk. And even if they flex the knees, they are straight with their body, with their trunk. The upper part is always straight. And therefore, the core is very important. And also, so as I was saying, you don't move your body, but only your arm. So when you hit the ball is coming to this side, I prepare, and then the body is steady, and the arm goes. One of the typical and most common mistakes of players when they begin is that they want to hit strong and they move all their body, which reduces the control over the ball. And you do this. Or better, from the lateral side, ball is towards there. Or things like this. You don't do that. No steps, no extra moves. The body is very strong and still. And the arm is fast. You don't need big muscles, but you need to be coordinated and be very fast when you move your arm. I think I can still hit the ball quite fast, not that fast, and I don't have any muscle. So it's not a question of how big your muscles are. It's a question of coordination and how fast you're able to let your arm go when you're hitting the ball. As long as you control your body. If you don't control your body, then forget about it. But when you are in control of your body, the fastest you go, the fastest the ball goes and control towards the other side. You with me, guys?
Yes.
So it's two things: body under control, position lateral. Third thing, the weight. Like where is the weight of your body laying? Usually for beginners, we teach that the speed is a part of letting the arm go. It's a question of transfer of the weight. Like when you start hitting the ball, if the ball comes from that side, not from you, but from that side, all my weight when I prepare to hit the ball is on this leg, on the leg that is further from the opposite side. And then as I hit the ball, all my weight moves from basically this leg only to this leg only. So the weight transfers from here on the back part to hit forward. I don't still move, but all my weight moves from one side to the other. On the back end is the same. A ball comes from there, I hit back, I prepare, all my weight is here, and then I hit the ball here, and I finish forward, and all my weight is on the other. You follow me? It's a sort of transfer of weight from the back part to the forward part, and this helps the speed of the racket, the speed of the ball, more than trying to hit as strong as you can with your arm. And last thing that I think it must be said, because then there are thousands, but we are not going to delve into all of them, the most important, okay? The last thing is the movement of the wall arm. How do you hit the ball with the wall arms? So what does the arm do? Where does it start? Where does it finish? You can start here and finish down. You can start here and finish in between your legs. How does it work? It works in a way that you start when you want to hit the ball. I'm waiting the ball from your side. I prepare with the racket, head of the racket down and backwards. I'm lateral. Then I move little by little towards just naturally forward. I hit the ball next to me. And then I finish up. I finish. Up. This was not for me, right? Hopefully. I heard someone talking in German. Again, or maybe I'm the only one hearing here things. Anyways, so start down, hit next to me, finish up. Same for the backhand. Ball comes from you, I start down, trunk is up, but my racket is down. Hit the ball next to me, finish up. Yeah? In some cases, we say to teach especially kids, to wear the scarf. You know, a scarf that covers your neck. You do this, wear a scarf, put a scarf on. That would be a let's say picture with figurative way for the kids to understand. I think in Austria it works well. In Texas didn't really work that well because they had no idea what was a scarf. Since they have like 60 degrees in winter and 80 in summer, they were like, scarf? Never heard about. Here in Austria, I guess it will work just fine if you say that. So it's like putting a scarf on. And you finish here. You can finish here, but the control over the ball is lower because the ball, you impact the ball here, but if you do it well, it's not that the ball hits and goes away, but stays on your strings because of the elasticity of the strings, and then it's released later. And so finishing the movement is very important. So remember, lateral body is in control still, just the arm goes as fast as you can. Transfer of weight from back to forward without moving your legs. And the movement, the complete movement of a typical ball is I start below and I finish up. I say typical ball because here Alexandra would ask me the same question: what happens when a ball comes in a diff, or doesn't it depend on the ball that comes from the other side? Yes, it does, obviously. If you have a ball at a regular height, you hit the ball here. What happens if the ball is here? Because it has a lot of spin. Obviously, this movement, it must be adapted depending on the position of the ball, but you will never hear anyone telling you that to hit the ball from here down, except if you are serving or smashing or playing these shots. But on a baseline shot, if it's high, you have a couple of options. One is obviously I start higher. I don't start here, but I always finish here. So high, you don't do down because you are on the baseline. The net is about 9 meters far from you. If you do this, you'll have the ball on the net or bouncing on your side, which is something that you don't want. So if you have a high ball, there are a few options. Either you start from here and finish up, or you go backwards until the ball that was so high goes down, and then you wait it for a normal shot. That's also an option, but it depends on how high the ball was and how much court you have behind you. Sometimes it happened to me to hit the fence because I didn't realize that I reached the bottom of the court, and boom, because there was no space anymore to go back. So if you have space, you can go back, and let the ball go down, and then hit regularly. And the last and most complicated way to hit the ball when it's higher is that you hit it on the bounce, almost. So the ball bounces, and it's going to be very high ball. Instead of letting the ball go high, you anticipate it. So the ball bounces, is going up, and on its trajectory towards the peak, you hit it. That's very complicated. But some players do it. Like, for instance, Roger Federer is one of the things he's good at is to anticipate the ball. Don't let the ball go up, because then it becomes very difficult to hit. But hit it on the way up. So you hit it as a normal shot, but on the way up, which is very complicated, but very effective for the height of the ball. That's why he has so many problems with Rafa Nadal and loses a lot of time with Rafa, because Rafa plays an extremely strong topspin. The ball races very fast, and Federer cannot anticipate the ball very well, and it's more complicated for him. Lately, he's winning more match against Rafa because Rafa got a bit weaker. But Rafa, Nadal, when he was young, his spin was impossible for almost any player in the world. And there are even studies that confirm that Rafa's spin was 4 or 5 times faster than any spin of any other tennis player. So it means that the rotation of the ball is 4 or 5 times higher or faster than other tennis players. So it means that the ball bounces and boom, it goes up very quick. This is just information, right? Just curiosity. Because maybe you have noticed it, but I'm a freak of tennis. I like tennis. I play tennis all my life. I watch tennis. So there's something that you can ask me about is tennis. So this is pretty much the basics of baseline strokes. One thing that I've always done, especially with kids, I do it even with my kids when they want to play tennis with me. I give them a reference for the legs, because nobody really understands the thing of the legs that first need to be sideways instead of frontal, and second, you can't move the legs. Nobody really can figure it out because it's complicated in the beginning. So what I do is, well, with my kids, I do whatever I can. For instance, I use the sledges that they have. They are rounded yellow sledges, and they put them as a reference. And they step on the 2 sledges that they have. They keep the... Hello?
I have an issue.
Ah.
I spoke of you over my Mac and it doesn't work.
Oh, that's a big issue. So I asked them to put their feet over the 2 sledges, and they cannot move from there. So they hit the ball, but since they have the feet on the sledges, they are sort of balanced there. But that's extreme because I don't have other equipment. But if I had equipment, I would use, and I use rings. You know the rings? Regular rings. I put 2 rings, one next to the other, and then I tell the kids to put 1 foot on one ring and the other foot on the other ring. And then so they have 1 foot. I don't wear shoes because we don't wear shoes at home. But I have 1 foot on one ring, 1 foot on the other ring, and then I'm giving them the ball, and they are forced to hit, but they can't move because I tell them that they have to keep their feet in the rings, or I make up a story that there is a river out there and the rings are the stones and they have to be on the stones or they'll fall. Whatever story you want to tell them.
Hört das was?
Ah, jetzt. Nur jemand anders. Ich höre ihn nicht mehr.
We can't hear you anymore.
Ich höre ihn auch nicht mehr.
Okay.
Oh, wonderful.
Ah, jetzt. Now it's okay. Again.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now again.
So what did you miss exactly?
40 seconds, maybe 30. I don't know.
But it's better than, hey, we haven't heard you since the very beginning of the class. That would have been way worse. I was just saying that, did you get that of the rings, right?
Yes.
I
This
was
was
just
the last
confirming that this would be one of the first things that I would do. So teach them to use how to put their feet and their legs when they hit the ball, even before the movement of the arm, before the weight movement, etc. I would teach them their correct position, and I would use visual references for that. You hear me?
Yes.
Thanks God. Other than that, if we had been on a tennis court, we would have seen exercises, but you would have seen a lot of games rather than typical exercises, because I'm more fan of game type exercises for learning, especially in beginners and intermediate. Obviously, for professionals, it's a completely different story. But for beginners and professionals, you hear me, right?
Yes.
Sometimes I see someone laughing and I say, are they laughing because they don't hear me, and then just talking to myself? So games are the best solution. I have plenty of them. I will send you some of the examples that I have. Hopefully you can picture that, but mostly the point is that we do some challenges. For instance, there is one game that I call Escape from Alcatraz. It's usually very nice because the instructor is on one side of the court. Behind the instructor, you form Alcatraz with cones and this stuff. So there are two small areas that you call Alcatraz. And then on the other side, on the other side of the court, there are the players. Usually I put the two rings so they can step on the rings and learn how to position themselves. But if they are more advanced, I don't put the rings. I just feed the ball. Feed the ball, it means I toss them a ball. They have to hit backhand or forehand. If it's in, they are safe and they continue playing. If it's out, they are imprisoned in Alcatraz. And they have to go back to the area of Alcatraz, and the only way to escape is for their teammate to hit a good ball inside the court that hits them, or that they can reach them. They can reach that ball. If they reach a ball, they touch the ball of a teammate, they are safe and they can escape from Alcatraz and go back to the line. Until that point, they are basically stuck in Alcatraz. Does it make sense a bit? So it's fun for the kids. It's a lot of fun because the idea, then there are 4 or 5 in Alcatraz that they are hoping to be saved by one, and the only one there is trying to hit the ball towards them. But it's very useful because you are not really thinking too much about the technique, which in beginners is complicated. But you are trying to, for instance, in this case, trying to figure out how to point at a zone in the other court. And little by little, by trials and errors, you reach that point. Obviously, the instructor does not only feed the ball, but also gives suggestions. So you're telling them, right, this time didn't work. Why don't you try to do it this way? Or why don't you try to put your racket down? So you are giving them small feedback every time, but without overloading them with feedback, especially in kids. In kids, is much better, because then they are overloaded with the legs in this way, the racket that way, the movement, and they don't learn anything. So games are very, very powerful means, especially for kids. We do it all the time. Another one is soccer tennis. So behind the instructor, there is a goal that you can make it with 2 cones. And there is a goalkeeper with the racket. And on the other side of the court, a line with the other kids. So one by one, I feed the ball and they have to hit a forehand. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, this stump told me something. Let me see. Oh yes, it went off. This went off. Okay, bye-bye. Anyways, I don't have to move anymore. So you have the goal behind you, goalkeeper, one of the kids with the racket, and the others on the opposite side on a line. One by one, they try to hit backhand or forehand and try to score. So try to score like in soccer, right? Like to hit the ball inside the goal without the goalkeeper reaching it. The whole point of the game is you win if you are the goalkeeper at the end of the time. When the time is over, if you are the goalkeeper, you win. How do you become the goalkeeper? By scoring. If you score a goal, you have to run quickly to the other side and you become the goalkeeper. The one that was previously goalkeeper, if he gets the goal, they have to run back to the line and start hitting backhand and forehand. And so at a certain point, I say stop, and there is a winner. The winner is the one who was last as goalkeeper. It's pretty fun. You have to run also, because sometimes when I do it, when one scores, has to run to the other side of the court. And meanwhile, the person runs, I'm already giving the ball to the following one. So one has to kind of run crazily because so to reach the goal and cover the goal in time. And the other instead gets crazy because, oh, the goal is not, there is nobody as a goalkeeper, I can score easily. So it's pretty good, and still they have a lot of fun, and meanwhile they are trying the strokes. Obviously, you'll see I'm not going to tell you all the traditional way, because the traditional way is probably what you can see in any professional training, and this is the pretty basic. Like the traditional way is I'm feeding you the ball and you're hitting over the time. That's boring, completely boring. So this is a good way to do it. Other games that I did and that we discussed the last time. I don't know if you remember the last time we were discussing a game that is called Rain of Balls or something like that, for instance, which is there are two teams, one on one side, one on the other. They have 50 balls per side, and then when I say go, they have to toss the ball to the other side. When I say stop, we count the balls, and the team that has less balls on their side is the winner. This can be used also for backhand and forehand. You tell them to take the rackets, and you tell them to, when the time is on, they have to hit backhand and take a ball, hit backhand or forehand, and toss it to the other side, as many as they can. The only disadvantage here is if they are kids or they are not really good at controlling themselves, etc., there is a risk for injuries, because can you imagine 5, 6, 7 rackets around hitting forehand and you don't know where the others are and you hit them in the head with the racket. So you can do it, but it depends on how responsible the kids are, and that's why I wouldn't have done it with you guys, because I know that you are not. In previous classes, they got so crazy that I said, okay, this cannot be applied here, because there would be some killing. And also how many kids or how many people you have. If you have too many in a small court, it's obviously crazy, because you have too high risk of hitting. But if you have a large space and less people, then you can do it. That's the only question, but still a good game for learning. Questions? Don't make too many questions, guys. I can't respond all these questions. But be aware that I don't charge you any money until the 3rd, so you have still 2 questions to ask. If you don't have any questions, guys, for today is everything. Next week.
I have a question for the analysis, because I wrote then a message on Remind. I don't know if you wrote.
Sorry, it doesn't happen that often, but I forgot to reply to you. So ask me now. Yeah, that's good.
No problem. It's about the stats, and yes, you said we should do exercise for each player, so for the weakness of each player.
Yeah.
But I did the stats for the whole game. Say this player has, I don't know, at a forehand stroke is better than backhand stroke. So I don't know how I should do it now.
Wait, I didn't hear you very well, but I'm going to read your message because
Okay.
No, because I'm losing sound too. It tells me that the connection is bad. I'd probably rather read it on Remind and then reply to you, and then if anybody else is interested, I can maybe extend the explanation on all that. But I'm not sure. Let me read it right now if you have time, and try to.
It's about the second point of the
It's about the exercise, no? It's about the exercise, like the exercise that you have to create.
Yes, and but you said highlight the weakness and strength of each player.
That's based on your analysis. So you do the analysis with the sheet.
But I did it for the whole game, so I can't say this one, this player is bad at, I don't know.
Oh, I see. You want to check the whole game? Go ahead. It's like 4 or 5 hours.
No, but I did it for both players, not for the whole game.
Again, you what?
I did it for both players, not only for one.
That's correct. You make the statistic for both players in one set. Both players will have different results, right? And then you calculate the statistic. But take into account that it's not a really precise analysis, right? I'm not going to ask you the precise analysis because that would be crazy. But you start marking like winner forehand, error backhand, and then you make a sort of count. Let's see what he did or she did worse. Go ahead, Antonio.
Wait a minute, wait.
Yeah, I'm reading your message meanwhile anyways.
Okay.
Guys, if you don't have any, sorry, Antonio, if you don't have any more questions apart of what Antonio was asking me, you are allowed to leave. But if you want to hear the thing because you also have some doubts for the analysis, just stay. But you are allowed to leave unless you have other questions on the back and forehand. As always, I will just upload the video. Go ahead, Antonia.
I can't find my earplugs, so I'm sorry.
I'm reading your message.
Yes. Maybe we can clear it through messaging.
All right, you know what? And this works for everybody. If you did the analysis or if you're doing the analysis and you're unsure about something, write me what you have. Just send me via email what you have already. So for me to check it and give you some feedback. Some other person did it. I don't think in your group, but in group A I have 2 tennis groups. In the other group, someone sent me the file and asked me if it was okay, if they were going the right way. You have until the end of the semester for that, but the sooner you do it, the better. So the best probably, Antonia, for understand, because I'm reading your message, but probably the best that you can do, send me what you have, even if it's incomplete, and ask me if it's okay this way or if you have to make any changes, if you have doubt. And I will check it on the way and give you feedback. So in case there is something that needs to be changed, you can change it before analyzing the whole set. Does it make sense? In theory, when you are analyzing the match, you are writing down a few things. First of all, it's only the last stroke that you analyze, not all the strokes in a rally. So if the players are playing and hitting 1, 2, 3, 4 times, then at a certain point, there is the final stroke, the stroke that either gives the point to one or to the other. That's the stroke that you have to analyze. And you don't repeat twice. Like the main point in the analysis is, if a play, let's say that I'm playing and I make a mistake, you can either put it as a mistake for me. If the ball was easy to hit, but I really missed, that's a mistake for me. If the other player hit the ball so good that I made a mistake because it was very difficult to hit, then that's a winner for the other player. Do you follow me, guys? And you only put one mark per point. It's either a winner for a player or a mistake for the other. You don't put twice, like winner for player and mistake for the other. So you put the main question when you analyze is deciding if the mistake, if it happened, was an easy shot that the player really missed, or a difficult shot, and so in that case it would be a winner for a player. In tennis, in professional tennis, they call it forced error and unforced error. Unforced error is obviously when you miss a shot that is easy. Forced error is when you make a mistake because the other forced you to do that. In that case, it's a winner for that player rather than a mistake. At the end of the set, you will have a lot of marks, some for one player, some for the other. Sum up and make a basic statistic. Obviously, it's not a true statistic, right? I wish we could understand the player mistakes or weaknesses and strengths only from analyzing one set. But just from what you have seen, make a sort of summary. What did the player do well? What did the player do bad in that specific set? And then try to figure out one exercise, game, or whatever, not necessarily for that player, because that's a professional player. Who knows? Not even a player sometimes know, kind of. But figure out an exercise, a fun exercise that can be done for improving that specific thing that the player made mistakes on. If you have doubts on the exercise, again, ask me. But my main suggestion is, for that, you don't have to create anything. Look up the web. Look up the web, specialized websites, etc. What do they tell? What are the exercises that they tell to do? That's no plagiarism or anything. Like, this is how the information and knowledge goes around. Like when I do exercises with you, like escape from Alcatraz. It's not that it's one day I got up and I say, "Oh, escape from Alcatraz." Like I make a lot of research, I read professional pages, and then sometimes I like an exercise the way they say it. Other times I take an exercise and I convert it into a tennis game or whatever. So that's exactly the point of this exercise, like reading. For me, it's important that you read, you check informations, and it's a way also for you to increase your knowledge. I don't expect you to create anything from scratch, but I expect you to make some research to figure out what professionals say you can do for that specific thing that you found out. This is general. I'm not responding to Antonia specifically because I didn't get really 100% what's her problem or what's her doubt, better said, but this is a general recommendation for everybody. And then, as I say, specifically, please, Antonia, send me your file or send me anything more specific that I can help you with. And anybody else, if you need help in this sense, do the same. Send me whatever you have or send me your questions. Usually I'm pretty fast at responding. Sorry, Antonia, but sometimes it happens that maybe I'm in a class, I see your message, I open it, then I close it because I'm in a class, and then, or I'm doing some research, I don't know. And then since it doesn't mark it anymore on my phone, I forget. So sorry. But usually in the 24 hours, I respond. So if I don't, you can again write me another message. Hey, I wrote you yesterday. I won't get angry unless it's Sunday at 2 in the morning or Saturday at 2 in the morning. I won't get angry either. Just I won't respond to you. Okay.
Yes.
So Antonia, please send me your file or anything that you can send me so I can help you with your doubt. And anyone else too, as you do it and doubts come, just let me know. All right. If there is anything, if there is nothing else or no questions on the baseline strokes, I'll upload the video in OLAT. I'll upload also a file with some exercises that can be done for that. And I'll see you in 2 weeks. We discuss new other strokes, the volleys. All right. Anything in the meanwhile, write me.
Thank you.
Bye, guys. Antonia,
Thank
write
you.
me now. Send me that.
Bye.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.
Ciao.
Bye.